As an academy owner, you work hard to build trust with your students, their parents, and your community. But trust isn't something you claim, it's something you prove and earn. That's where Academy Safe comes in. We help academies like yours stand out with verified safety standards. Background checks for all staff, U.S. Center for Safe Sports certification, concussion training, defibrillators on site, CPR, first aid and AED certification, security cameras, rank and lineage checks, and verification of business insurance. Join the trusted martial arts registry that's redefining safety throughout North America. Lead by example. Show parents you're accredited with Academy Safe.
Hello, and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts, typically focused on Kempo, but we give love to all the martial arts around here. I am Reggie Darden, and I'm excited to have a chat with another wonderful guest today, Mr. Joe Stricklett. And we're going to get into his journey and whatever other rat holes that we decide to get onto, then we'll do that as well. I always start things off by saying that I train in multiple martial arts at this point, American Kempo, Capoeira, Hapkido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and I also have some experience in Taekwondo and some boxing, so
Wow.
I try to stay well-rounded and along with doing the podcast and work and life, I stay pretty busy, but, it's... that's the fun. That's the fun part of it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So let's turn it over to our guest here. How did the martial arts find you? How did Kempo find you? Where did it all begin? What is the origin story? And we'll just kind of go from there.
Origin story. It in a world from another time. No,
I like it.
I started in I took a lot of like free lessons around where I used to live. I used to live in Manchester, New Hampshire, or Bedford, New Hampshire rather. And originally I'm from the West Coast, from Seattle. And I moved to Bedford, New Hampshire like in 1987. And so I had been wanting to do martial arts for a lot of my life. And, it's always like, because it's considered like a extracurricular thing at the time, my parents always found reasons like, oh no, not this time, not this year, whatever, maybe next year. So, the first thing I did actually, I think was, wrestling. I wrestled in high school. And so I wrestled for only 1 year, and it was the closest thing I could find that was free. And it showed me a lot about just like kind of what I can take and what I can handle, and good lessons in losing and winning.
Oh yeah, as being a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm
Yeah,
I'm very much
there's like
aware of that.
yeah, there's like you definitely start to understand with those kind of arts, like where like the humiliation factor is. Like I've been in when I was wrestled in high school. I got pinned in some pretty like embarrassing ways, and I eventually like picked up and got a little better, and but I didn't go back to it for, I guess, various reasons. Just young. I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I wanted something different, something more, and so I had a friend who I was like kind of bouncing around trying to like different arts and stuff like that. I went to like a master self-defense in Manchester and tried their like course, their free course of like masters. I think was a Fred Villari offshoot.
Oh, gotcha.
And I remember I saw I'd always wanted to do Aikido, right? That was like one of my first loves because of Steven Seagal and all that stuff, right? Well, that maybe not the first really it was I wanted to be a ninja first, and
Yeah, oh, yeah.
then Aikido. So anything in the Japanese arts, and a lot of that stuff wasn't really available where I lived. So um, I collected a lot of like books, like Dr. Masaki Hatsumi and Stephen K. Hayes, like all the ninja books. My God, I like read through all those. Jack Hoban, just like, and but I didn't really absorb a lot of that stuff, because like I think it's one thing to read, it's another thing to actually do and perform. So I tried some of the stuff out, but without somebody kind of like directing you and showing you, it was not very possible. So one of my friends in high school was doing Taekwondo, and I went to his, like, it was AITC in Manchester. And I remember going in, and I already had some of the kicks down and stuff like that. And his instructor said something weird to me, like, "Oh, we won't even start you at a yellow belt. You already know some of the kicks. We'll start you at like a yellow or orange." And I was like, that seemed kind of strange to me. So I was like, okay, yeah, cool. So I liked it, but I didn't like it. And then that same friend he was working at this sub shop, this sandwich shop called D'Angelo's. It's like a kind of a local chain in New England. And he's like, "Dude, I was working with this guy, and I think he does what you want to do." Because I had seen The Perfect Weapon, and that was like my main focus. Now I was like, how does that guy move that fast? Like Jeff Speakman's like throwing his hands everywhere. I was like, what is it? Like I've never heard of it, And knowing what I know now, actually, like years prior, in 1990, this was like 93 actually. And in 1990, I had seen a black belt, I think, or 1991, early 91, black belt did a retrospective of Ed Parker and had him on like in a Hawaiian shirt, like on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself as a kid, I was like, what's the big deal about this like fat white haired guy? I had no idea. I was clueless, So so my friend was like, "Yeah, this guy I'm working with, I'm making sandwiches with, he does Kempo." I'm like, okay, all right. So what is his deal? He's like, "Yeah, he's looking to train people. You want to learn?" And I'm like, where does he teach? Does he have a school? And he's like, "No, he teaches like out of his house." And I was like, that sounds affordable. Let me see what I can do. So in Manchester, there's a place called Steve White's or Manchester Kempo Karate, and it's owned by Steve White. He's been there for a really long time. And so that's how I met. Through this friend, I met my first instructor, which is Matt Hayes. So Matt Hayes, he did a number of things. He was originally, I think, from Boston, or at least from Massachusetts, and he had trained in Kempo at Steve White's, and he also joined the Guardian Angels, and he had some stories, his Guardian Angels stories, or I don't know. I don't know about anybody. Like, unless you're there, it's like as a kid, I was eating it up. I was like, oh my God, he's like, oh, I fought in the what was it, the riots in New York City, like during the Rodney King riots, in the garment district. I was like, there were riots. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just like ate it up, So I started training with him, and we started in his kitchen. He had a tiny, like, a kitchen that probably wasn't bigger than like 7 feet by 10 feet. I did my yellow belt test there. I remember specifically, I think it was my yellow, maybe even my orange belt test before he actually got a school. And so he had broken off from Steve White's at his black belt test. So we went for his black belt. And leading up to his black belt, he was really, like, he had met Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker had come and done like seminars and stuff like that. And he had his own like little stories about meeting Mr. Parker. And I remember him like he was let's see. He had some story about Mr. Parker really liking how he had a Batman patch, and he was like, "Oh, that Batman patch is good at keeping kids' attention, when you're teaching them." Love that idea. Anyway, he was really hungry for information, because in those days before the internet, we had books and IKK and that stuff didn't come out. It didn't flow out like it does today. If you found a video like, Sophisticated Basics 1 and 2, like, holy cow, you were lucky. Or somebody taped somebody that one time. So he,
Yeah, or the Panther production videos. Those
yeah,
were
yeah, the Panther
those were
production videos.
the gold mine
Yeah,
around
they were
our
so expensive in
neighborhood.
those days for like a kid. I was like, I don't know, do I have $1,000 for the entire collection? Maybe I'll just get one video. And so uh, Matt Matt had gone for his black belt test, and he had asked his instructor Steve White. This is his story, so I'm just relaying the story. He had asked his instructor, "Is there any other information? Are there like books or journals or whatever?" And Steve had like a red book, or his version of a red book that had the standardized student information in it. He goes, "Nope, everything you need is right in there. There's no other information." And so I guess I don't know when that happened. Probably shortly before I met him. He had met Miss Doreen Cogliandro, right? And so Miss Dirienzo, actually. So he had met her at the Boston Summer Open, which was a tournament she used to throw years back. For many years, she threw that. It's probably the same place where they're having the IKCs this year.
Gotcha.
And he had met her, and he started chatting her up, and was asking her all this stuff. And she's like, "Yeah, of course. There's the Infinite Insights, the Kempo books. There's this book. There's that book. There's the IKK has journals and all this stuff." And so he was heated. He was really heated. He went back for his black belt test, and when they got to the point where they're talking about the love, lies, whatever. If you wish to deny this belt or deny the information, whatever. And he denied his black belt at his test. Went through the whole test and denied it. And everybody was kind of in shock. And he went over to his backpack and he pulled out Infinite Insights and threw it on the ground. He's like, "You've been lying to us. There's so much more information out there." So I guess it was kind of in that time, in those days, where like certain instructors were like information hoarders, because information's power, right? You don't want somebody to know everything, because then, they're not going to want to keep learning from you for some reason. So, anyway, I started training with him, and I trained with him for a few years. I started in 1993. And I remember learning delayed sword and thinking like that technique like blew my mind. It was like, it's so silly, because it's like, you think about like, you step back, you block, kick, and you throw that hand sword out. And I was like, you step off the line of the attack. That makes so much sense. And you kick the guy to the groin, and it feeds this hand, and that's what makes it faster. Wow, that's amazing. And so I really loved it. And I was all about it. Is all I ever thought about and wanted to do. So and then I eventually went to college, right? So I think I went to college in 97, and I graduated in 95, took a year off, and then decided to go, applied, and went in 97. And in that time, I think I got up to my blue belt, maybe my blue belt. And I continued to train. I would go back on the weekends occasionally. So I went to school in Brooklyn, New York. So it wasn't like super far away, and I was dating a girl at the time that she went to a school in Nyack, New York. So I would, go up there, and we would drive home and stuff like that. So I was really kind of dedicated to the idea of the IKKA, and that was the Kempo that I did. I didn't divert away. It was the way for me, right? And my first instructor was pretty critical, and critical of other guys who are pretty well known. That's, I think, just how he was, and that's how like he kind of passed it on to the students. So he reinforced basics, right? That was one of his real strong points. He reinforced mastering basics and how to really find certain things, find your stances, use your stances, utilize everything as you're working. But it was kind of like we didn't use a lot of contact, which was kind of strange. There was this weird saying, and I think this is kind of a New England thing. when you go through a technique and you might like make a little bit of heavy contact, nothing too bad. So be like, oh wow, that was great, good control. Or if you hit a little too hard, be like, ooh, watch your control. That was like a thing that would happen, like somebody gets tapped. And I was like, because I like between wrestling and I have a couple of brothers and we fought all the time, just like,
Oh yeah, I've got older brothers as well, and
yeah.
yeah, we've
Well,
we've had
I was
our
the oldest, so I
tussles.
was a bully.
Oh, I was
I
the youngest, so I was the punching bag. So
um yeah, so I would, try my stuff out of my brothers and, we'd work out a little bit. And then some of the guys from class I went to school with. And so we would work out occasionally. But yeah, we kind of like, by the time I got to college, I was like, what am I going to do? And so from a early belt age, I guess, like an underbelt, I was taught to help to teach. Like I was an assistant instructor, right? And because my instructor Matt had or Mr. Hayes, he had a small school. He didn't have any black belts under him. He was the only black belt, and so uh, there were only a few people that were a slightly higher rank than I was, and so we all just started taking on these roles with new students coming in. He would kind of like put it to us to help instruct them and help correct their motion and stuff like that, which I think kind of led to my love and understanding of teaching, because you learn so much more when when you teach.
oh, definitely, definitely.
It's so eye opening, the things you see, all different belt levels. Um, and so I'm in college now, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And so I decided to teach, and I started teaching a couple of friends and stuff like that. But college is like so wishy washy. People commit, they don't commit, they hang out, they do stuff. It's so casual. And I was trying to be like rigid, and it just didn't. It was like I went to art school. It was like a bunch of art nerds. So and then as time went on, I started just training by myself. I'd go back. I was going back to New Hampshire less and less, and I was training by myself. And it was like it's weird in New York City proper. There's like no Kempo schools. There was like let's see. I think there was one up in the Bronx. And then Norman Sandler had his school, or he worked at a Toki Hill school, I think, out in Long Island. But if you don't have a car, and going out to Long Island it's a hike. You're taking a train and then somebody's picking you up and stuff like that. So I was trying to find somebody kind of local. And little did I know that at that very same time, actually he had already moved out, I think. But Juan Serrano lived in Brooklyn and was kind of like, I think he went out in 97 or 98 or 99, something like that. He went out to Pasadena, and that's where he started his journey. But we were like, and his friend.
It's a small world.
It is. Yeah. His friend, a friend of mine now, Marshall Rao, also ended up going out in, I think, 97, 98, something like that, out to California, and got into Kempo. And he got together with Mr. Kongaika, and that he was with him for a long time. So let's see. I did that, and then I was training by myself, trying to find somebody. I was interviewing instructors as a green belt. Or as a brown belt. Maybe I was brown belt. Yeah, I was a brown belt at this point. And I was interviewing instructors. Like I would go to a school if I found somebody who taught, and I'd be like, okay, what can you teach me? And I was really like rigid with like, are you part of IKK? No. All right. So I don't know if I'm going to train with you. I was like, we can hang out, we can work out, but I'm not going to rank under you. I don't think you have anything I can learn from, which is kind of crazy. So,
No, I get it.
But I was trying to
find
like
the right fit.
Yeah, I was trying to have the right like kind of standards for myself or something at the time. I don't know. And so I was always looking. I was kind of myopic, just staying within New York City. There was a Chinese Hawaiian Kempo place, but I didn't do Chinese Hawaiian Kempo. I did American Kempo. So I decided to look over into New Jersey, which seems kind of crazy because you think if you go out to Long Island, why wouldn't you go out to Long Island, not New Jersey? And actually, New Jersey is kind of closer. It's a short bus ride there or a short car ride across the river. And so I found a Kempo school out of the phone book because that's kind of how you found it in those days. It was 2005. So there were like schools online, and stuff. But and so I reached out to Francisco Vigaru. And so I had seen I saw his name in the phone book, and I was like, okay, I'll call him. I made an appointment. And when I was on the phone with him, I was like, so, who do you train with? Are you under the IKK? And he's like, no. I'm with the LTKK. I'm with Larry Tatum. And I was like, oh, that's how I was like indoctrinated early. It's like, oh, nothing Larry Tatum. That's why I never got like Kempo Strikes or any of the Panther videos. Because like, oh, those guys aren't, the real deal. It's only this stuff, which is completely false, not true at all. So I was like, well, okay, well, I'll still come out, whatever. And so right after I got off the phone with him, I looked him up, and I found a video on YouTube, and it's still on there. It's really old. It's probably almost 20 years old now. And it was of him and one of his students, Humberto Narvaez, in Venezuela. And because Francisco he now has like schools that are under him in South America, Central America, Mexico. And so I saw him, and I saw them doing techniques, and I was like, I hadn't seen Kempo like that before. I had only seen it, maybe something similar with a seminar with like, say, Gilbert Velez, and a little bit with Miss D'Arienzo. But I mean, he was just like fast, sharp. I was like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to do. That's the stuff. And so I got my brother to go with me just so I had backup. And it was funny because the Kempo instructors I had met up until that point were pretty standoffish when they first meet you. They're trying to like tough guy it, whatever. Oh yeah, the guy up in the Bronx was Robert Soma. I don't know if he has a school up there anymore, but I went up to his school and I checked it out. And he and I didn't, match. And so one of the interesting things about Francisco's school at the time is it was a below ground school. So you had to go downstairs. And I was like, wow, this is that's one thing I have to say, not to divert too much, but in New York City, I think it's challenging for martial arts schools because ground floor like storefronts are crazy expensive. Crazy expensive. And the ones that can afford it have big backing, like Gracie's or whatever, they have big backing. So a lot of them are like second and third floors. You go to Chinatown or, Midtown or there's a few in Brooklyn you can get some small storefronts, but it's really, really expensive. The rent is crazy. So that results in people having really tiny karate schools that they can afford, or they go up upstairs to a second or third floor, or down to like a basement. Now, one of the things I find fascinating is they have students. And to me, if I didn't know anything about like martial arts, right? Walking by, because I did this when I was younger, walking by, you want to stare in the window and watch. But going up going up like 2 flights to a door where there's no window looking into the class, or going down to a basement, that's terrifying. That takes a lot of guts to be like, you know what, I really want to do this. And so I got that pang when we got to his like studio, and I looked down the stairs and I'm like, all right, okay, let's do this. We go downstairs, and I look over and I'm like, oh, hi, Mr. Viguru, I'm Joe. I have the appointment or whatever. And he's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. He walks across the room, gives me a handshake, a big hug. Oh yeah, you guys want to train? He was super duper nice. He was super nice. And it like really kind of like put me off a little. I was like, wow, this guy's really nice. I figured he'd be like, a tough guy and just like, okay, yeah, you guys want to train? All right, fine. Give you the whole kind of attitude. No attitude, no ego, really friendly. And that was a start of somebody I ended up training with for a really long time, about 20 years, 18, 20 years, something like that. And uh, yeah, I went to, let's see, what was it? I think one of the first times I was ever like officially out of the country for a long time. Like I had gone to Canada for a day or two and came back for a day and came back, right? With some friends. But Francisco was like, "Hey, you should come with me to Caracas, to Venezuela, where there's a big tournament and seminars." He goes, "You could work with me. You want to do that?" And I was like, yeah. I mean, okay, yeah, sure." And I had tested for my second degree brown, and so I was a second degree brown or a third degree brown, I forget. No, I was a second degree. I was working on third, and he had, when he, after our first couple of classes, he asked me why I wasn't a black belt. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "You move really well. Why aren't you a black belt?" And I'm like, "I'm not really about rank. I never have been." And my other instructor was pretty rigid with timing and stuff like that. And then I had this a number of years of just training by myself. So I wasn't looking for rank. I was just looking for knowledge. And so he we go to Venezuela. So we get to Venezuela. It's a totally different world to me. It was beautiful. And different, and the food was amazing. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I know the food.
And it was actually an international tournament. There was like all different schools from South America were there. So like Chile comes in, and I don't think Colombia was there, but like there was like a couple of Venezuela and Argentina. It was amazing. And they all represented their countries in different ways. They did dances and stuff like that. And then I don't know if you've ever been to South America or to Mexico. Those guys are like some really fierce, like tournament fighters, like really fierce. Some of the best I've ever seen. They're very fast. And that's one of the things they absolutely love. It's kind of like they all do Kempo down there, but one of the things they love is competition. They love doing like, you know, it was kind of around the same time where like extreme martial arts were on the rise, and people were doing like jumps and flips and doing all that stuff. A lot of acrobatic martial arts, and these kids down there were doing that like with their kempo. So they were doing kempo forms and then throwing in other stuff. Um, and so it was quite a sight to see. And I was just walking around, and I was treated incredibly well. Everybody, I think Jose Aponte was the person who threw the tournament. And that was the first time I met Frank Soto. So I met Frank Soto, and I was sitting there, and I felt like, you know, I was so thankful that he also spoke English. I was like, "Oh, this is great. It's somebody else I can talk to." Um, but yeah, the people are amazing. I think Francisco and I did a ton of seminars in over like 2 days, 2.5 days. And, and then at one of the final seminars, he had everybody, come, like it was like 400 people or something like that, come to this one main area that we had done our first seminar together in, the day before. And he called me up and he promoted me to first degree black in front of everybody. And it was super emotional for me because, like, leading up to that, I had thought yeah, I don't know, you feel like I felt like I was probably going to get my first degree black from my original instructor. I don't know why I was like crossed wires like that, right? But I thought like, oh, this is the way, And then he promoted me to first black, and I was like, oh my God, it didn't happen like I thought it was going to happen. So this is like something totally different. And I was really emotional about it, but not in a bad way. I was just like really touched. The whole ceremony, everything was really great. He does this really great belt ceremony that I'm a huge fan of. He, you both get down on your knees, right? And he takes the belt off of you, and he does this thing where he grabs it, puts his hand on your chest, and boom, pulls it off. Then he takes off his belt and he puts it on me. So now I'm sitting there with like a 6th or 7th degree belt on, and I'm like, and he puts on my 1st degree black, and then we salute and we just meditate for a second, and then he takes it off, takes mine off, and it's like a transfer. It's symbolic as a transfer of knowledge from him to me, and I was super moved by this. I had no idea. I was like, oh my God, I'd never seen like such a touching, emotionally charged belt ceremony. It felt very personal, you know. Um, and then we hugged. I thanked him. There's all these people cheering, and then he invited whoever wanted to come up and kick me could. And there were like 15 instructors. I was like, okay, here we go. And I think like 10 guys or something like that kicked me. And they all get like, some guys jump kicked me, so it was pretty rocking. Yeah. So that was an incredible experience. And when I got back, my brother ended up having like a barbecue, right? And some of my friends were like, "Oh, dude, I heard you got your black belt. You're like, now you can like kill me, whatever." I'm like, "No, I could kill you before. Killing's easy, and now I can not kill you,
Exactly.
But but I couldn't tell. They're like, "Tell me what was it about?" And I could not tell the story without breaking down and crying. It was like just this really weird emotional wave that would hit me, and it took me a while to be able to like get it out. And I think it was like years of training by myself, the expectations of, how you are when you're coming up through the ranks, of what you think you're going to be, how you think it's going to happen, and then, when it does happen, you're flooded with different emotions where you're, excited, you're exhausted, you're kind of just emotionally drained, and you're still trying to be in the moment and like, recognize all of it. So yeah, I really like enjoyed it. I cherished that moment. It was really incredible, and so I started traveling with him when he would do seminars abroad. So we went to Spain together. We went to Chile a few times. So I started, just traveling with him. We went to the UK as well. And each time was this really crazy learning experience. And then in 2011, right after my 3rd degree test, I got my 3rd degree in February, and we went in March to my first time in Chile. And so from Chile, we went to Viña del Mar and Villa Alemana, and I forget, maybe Valparaiso. Yeah, I think Valparaiso. But I think the event was in Viña del Mar, I think. And he wanted me to teach, and it was the first time he'd asked me to actually teach instead of just being, assisting. And oh, actually, can I backtrack one quick note?
Of course.
So back to Venezuela, right? In one of the seminars, I'll tell 2 quick stories. In one of the seminars, I go in, and there is like 4th degree, 5th degree, 6th degree, 3rd degree, and I'm like, I got this like brown belt on. I haven't been promoted yet, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. And so like there is a level of contact that he uses for, a beginner's class, an intermediate class, and then advanced black. And by the time you're in advanced black, he's making like a lot of contact, right? So he starts going through the technique deceptive panther, right? The brown belt technique. And he's hitting me with it, whatever. And then he makes I think he does protecting fans as a separate example, right? And he pops me right in the forehead. I'm like, whoa, all right, this is crazy. And so it's so different than my New England experience, which is like kind of no contact to like contact, getting smacked around, open handed, like so much noise, but it was great. I loved it. And so he finishes up his example, right? And we were doing Deceptive Panther. And I'm looking around and there's all these guys and I'm standing there. He goes, "Hey, why don't you go like make sure everybody's doing it right?" I go, "What, dude? We're a brown belt. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Just trust me." And so, I look around and sure enough, everybody's different, right? Everybody gets their ranks for different reasons and, you know, different belt systems within Kempo, I guess. And so yeah, I had to show a lot of the guys how to do stuff. But and I
Yeah, it
was I
goes
was a
back to that. It goes back to that saying. Although the belt colors show, doesn't mean that you know. And
yeah,
yeah, I think a number of us have been in those kind of situations. I know my instructor has talked about going to seminars and things like that, and there were people with a lot more red in their belt than him,
yeah,
but yet he was the one that was teaching them people, or he'd have his students, and it's like, oh well, like these like orange belts know these techniques and know the movements and know how to do these things better than some of these third and fourth and fifth
yeah. I
black
mean,
belts. And I mean, I've been in seminars and classes and things like that, and even though I train in multiple arts and I've been formally in the martial arts since the early 90s.
mhm,
I still, as of this recording, have not earned a black belt in any system, but yet there have been a number of times where I've had to teach some black belts a few things. And
yeah,
not to try and brag or not to try and say I know anything. I mean, I'm very mediocre at martial arts at best, but uh, there's something to be said. We can all learn from each other, and
absolutely,
not anybody would take multiple lifetimes to quote unquote master kempo or any art. So to think that, oh well, just because I have these bars or these stripes or
right.
whatever, that I know more than anybody, it doesn't work that way.
It
You can learn
it
something
definitely
from
doesn't.
everybody.
It
So
definitely doesn't. I mean, I think when you look at the way well, I won't get into the ranking system, but yeah, I've been in tons of situations, and that was my first time though, because I was taught like the hierarchy was important, you know, and I didn't, in that moment, I wasn't going to go there and be disrespectful or anything like that. Somebody, who knows how somebody got something, how they got the information or didn't have a technique or forgot it or whatever. You never know what somebody's going through, so I approached it with like kindness and respect and carefulness, Um, and of course, like Kempo is a universal language. Like not everybody spoke English. I don't speak any Spanish really, a tiny bit to get by, but like, it was, the physical movements are a universal language. So, you can show somebody something and be like, okay, like this and not like that. But yeah, that was a really big lesson for me to not judge the person by the belt, but like see what they do first before you start, give them the old, oh yes, they're okay, all right, I'm not into like
yeah.
belt hierarchy. I mean, I wear a fifth degree, but I'm not really into hierarchy because I think a lot of that stuff really spun out of control. Where it's like I've seen schools and people where they're like, their instructor is like also the life coach, right? And then people are like outside of the school bowing in subservience to people. And I'm like, no, that's like, you're okay. You outrank me on the mat, but not in life. Like, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah, there's a fine line between the respect and Oh gosh, I don't know the wording I want to use, but um, yeah, being the owner of the school or being the head instructor of the school doesn't necessarily make you a good person. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily make you a
no,
good teacher,
no, yeah, it's true.
and uh, and there is this. I mean, there definitely needs to be, at least in my opinion, there definitely has to be that line between what you're doing in the academy and what you're doing on the outside. I mean, uh, so my instructor is his name is Bill, and
Hmm.
we call him Bill. Um, I mean, I still use yes sir and things like that,
Of
but
course, yeah,
we don't know sensei sifu grandmaster.
right.
Like we don't do that. And if
No
I
titles.
see him outside on the street, I'm not gonna. I mean, well, we don't bow to each other in the academy, but definitely if I catch him out, at the Walmart, I'm not going to bow to him.
Right.
Same thing with any of my other instructors. I don't. I don't do
Yeah.
that. There's a time and a place for that, and the professor. He's when we're in the academy. That's the professor. But when we're out at a bar or something like that, no, that's the professor, or that's that person, and not professor or whatever. And having this kind of, I don't know, blind loyalty or anything to the instructors, I don't think that's necessary. And
Well, I think
if you
boundaries
want to
are
do that
healthy.
on your own, that's one thing.
Yeah,
But if the instructor is demanding that of you, then that's, for me, that's a red flag to
I
get out of
agree.
there.
Yeah, totally. I think people expecting loyalty from you. Like my first instructor was really young when I was really young too. So I was like 16 and a half or something like that when I started. And because I started in the fall, I believe, of 93. Now I can't remember, but somewhere around there. And might have been earlier. um, but I don't want to talk ill of him because he passed away a few years ago at a young age. And so um, I think, I think time can be a really good teacher if you're willing to, listen and understand the lessons. I've definitely grown as an instructor and understood, with time, like you make mistakes. You definitely make mistakes and you definitely teach something backwards or upside down and have to go back and change it. But I think the most important thing is and it's why I wear the belt that I wear. I try to always remember what it's like to be a white belt. So my belt is just like black on one side and white on the other side, and then it has like the red bar on it. Um, but I realized, like, in order to kind of differentiate myself a little bit, and to let people know it, maybe hopefully to set them at ease, or maybe it's a point of question that I try to approach when I teach, when I learn, like from a white belt angle. What is it like? And not to break things down, because people aren't dumb. Like I think there are times where you know you don't want to patronize people either. And I think there were times in the art, from stories that I've heard, where people complained that kempo was too complicated. It was like the techniques are too long, it's too hard to learn, and all that stuff. And so those people either chose to cut out techniques, or water down the system, or change the techniques to make it easier or something like that. And I get it, it's like up to them. But I think it does the student a disservice when you're learning Kempo. I can't tell you how, like, you go to teach a technique that's like you have black belts, brown belts, green belts. You're doing, like, say, an intermediate class, and you teach an orange belt technique, and half the people don't know what you're talking about, or a purple belt technique, and they're like, oh, wait, what was that? So, I try to, like, all right, well, I'll go through it. Let's do it, no big deal. not make a big deal, not like shame anybody for it. It's just not worth it. Um, but yeah, so that's why I wear the rank the way that I wear it. I've even considered actually just knocking out the black altogether and just wear a white belt, you know.
Yeah, it's important to keep an open heart and an open mind, and be flexible to. There's all kinds of different teaching styles. There's different versions of Kempo. There's
Yeah.
all these different components, and if you're closed off to teaching or to learning, and then that just dulls the experience for everyone. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
being willing to learn regardless of what belt you are, or being able and being willing to teach regardless of whatever belt you are. And
Yeah,
we all have different backgrounds and different experiences and different things, and there are things that I might know that you might not know. There may be things that we both know, but we have a different perspective on it. Um,
absolutely.
I mean, that's something that I've been seeing. I mean, with my journey, so I started at a school that was essentially the Tracy's version
Okay.
of Kempo,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize that there were other versions of Kempo until much later.
Hmm.
And when I started with the school that I'm at now, I kind of thought I was hot stuff a little bit because I had so many years of training in Kempo.
Hmm.
And when I started with the school, I quickly realized that, oh, well, I didn't know that there was a different version of Kempo.
Right.
And even though there are some techniques that are similar and forms and things that are similar, there was a lot more of the deeper sense of it that I was learning now. Wasn't learning a lot of the principles and the concepts
Right.
and things like that, and was doing a lot of the air karate and nothing against that. My first teacher was great, but it's just a different animal now.
I think it
Uh,
comes down to insurance, the air karate. Like also student retention, some people don't
yeah.
like to be touched.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
realize that when you go into a karate school, you're going to be manhandled. You're going to be touched eventually. And it doesn't happen right away. You're not kicked in the stomach your first day as a white belt. If it's a good
Depends on the
instructor,
class, but
yeah, yeah,
usually
true.
usually
You know,
some classes. One of my guests, I guess for lack of a better term, he was bullied into training.
uh,
He was escorting someone to the class. He had no intention of being part of the class or anything like that.
right.
But he was just escorting a young lady to the class. She ended up not taking the class, and as he was trying to exit, the instructor forced him back into the building
Yeah.
onto the mats and proceeded to whoop up on him. But yet he fell in love and came back and continued to came back and
That's what
made
happened.
Kempo a big part of his life. So
I think that's a very
it
like
happens.
a somewhat common story where people go like my first time with my first instructor, I showed up with my friend who worked with him, right? My friend started training. My friend was like going for his black belt or red belt or whatever in Taekwondo. So he already had like a lot of Taekwondo training and stuff like that. And he and I were doing Kempo together with Matt Hayes. And then one day he couldn't make it and he was my ride. So I didn't go. And then the next time he couldn't make it and he was my ride. So I didn't go. And I really wanted to, but I was like, oh, he's my ride. So I got a call from Matt that time and he was like, hey man, are you coming to class? Like, what's your deal? And I'm like, oh yeah, my friend Tommy, he's my ride. So he goes, well, you can come to class without him. You don't have to wait, till he's ready to go to class. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right, okay, and Tommy stopped going. He didn't really want to do it, and I stayed with it. And then when I went met with Francisco, I brought my brother in because my brother trained for a while in Kempo and stopped. And then he started training with me at Francisco's, and then he like eventually was like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go do my single guy thing. And so um, he went and did his thing, and I was doing it at one point. I was doing it like 4 days a week, and it was affecting my relationship at the time because I was, I'd go from work straight to Kempo, and Kempo didn't start like, especially back in those days. Francisco would do the adults class was like an 8 o'clock class, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
but it was we call it like Chilean time. So Chilean time means like, it starts kind of when they want it to start. So you get there and it's like, okay, I'm ready. It's 7 o'clock. It's like 7:30, 7:40. Okay, guys, let's go. 7:45. All right, do the class. And then you do the class, and then there's like the class goes on a little longer, or you're like hanging out and talking, and then by the time you get home, it's like 10:30. It's like, okay. So, but I had that was in the old days, it was a lot of fun. And then, he moved his school a couple of times. Um, and yeah, he and I, like, were, we traveled around and did a lot of stuff together. And then last year, I think it was last year or the year before, something like that, I decided to kind of go out on my own. And that's how I started Apex Kempo. So it's not necessarily any different than the curriculum. But I think the focus might on some of the things might be different. The influences might be different. Um, I'm not incorporating other arts or anything like that. I think it's just the emphasis that I'm putting on you know the techniques or the forms or whatever, and integrating some more realistic scenario based stuff in there. Maybe changing some of those step through punch attacks.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's all about customizing and
Yeah,
contouring to yourself. And I brought this up with other guests, and it's always funny to me that the quote unquote Kempo traditionalists get themselves worked up when somebody's like, oh well, I'm going, I teach this many techniques versus this many techniques, or I teach this form, or I teach this
right.
order, and they're like, oh well, that's not, the joke, how many Kempoists does it take to change a light bulb? One to change the light bulb, and 99 to say, well, that's not the way Ed Parker told me to do it. And
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's funny to me that there's that Ed Parker, one of the big things that he was known for was being outside of the box and not
It
doing
is.
things in the traditional way.
It's
But
on
yet
tape.
there's so many Kempo people that are like, oh, well, this isn't the way that Ed Parker taught it, so
Right,
you're wrong for changing it. And no, he was all about changing things and evolving things, and what works for me isn't going to work for you, and
right. Well, I
we
think he
we
was
have to do things differently.
when he passed away. I think he was about to level up to more of his because he had laid out all of his work, and he'd probably laid it out years before. But in '87, I think is when 80, 85, 86, 87, something like that is when the first like Infinite Insight books came out, right? Book one, book two, book three, book four, book five. And in that, he was laying out all of the concepts and principles, not all of them, but the main ones that existed that he had kind of like incorporated into Kempo, like found it, saw it, and it was like this evolution. Now everybody had written material. Like I was so excited to see like Ed Parker videos from, right before he passed. It must have been like crazy. And it's not. He's promoting book one and book two and making sure everybody knows what stances are and what like step throughs are and what some different concepts like I don't know, different principles like backup mass and marriage of gravity and torque, and making sure everybody understands like where those exist in techniques. In like the last couple of seminars that I saw of him before he passed away, I didn't see him personally, just from the films that have
Mhm.
been released or videos. Um, that's all it is, and he's really just going around reinforcing it. And I think he was building. It was part of a building block that he was going to build upon as he went forward, because there's still, like, according to some people that I've talked to, there's still a lot of writings and a lot of information, the videos and stuff that he had compiled, that was part of his like life's work, you know. So I think the problem with where it ended, where he passed, um, where the information was laid out, is compartmentalized, right? So this is my theory anyway, you know. Uh, so when people are like, traditionalists about like techniques and forms and, fighting combinations, although not a lot of people talk about the fighting combinations, but like forms and stuff like that, nobody integrates all of those things. People are like, that's not how you do the technique. Our sparring doesn't look like our techniques. The sparring ends up looking like shitty kickboxing or like tournament sparring, right? So there's nothing wrong with tournament sparring at all. There's a lot of things you can learn from it. But if you can incorporate all of those things, then people don't have to wait for a step through punch. They can act, they can understand that they don't have to do this like particular pattern for this perfect idealized attack. They can start utilizing it in all sorts of different ways. And, so people get stuck very quickly. And what happens is when instructors get stuck, their students get stuck. And it takes work to continue to find those gems. Like people like Larry Tatum, who broke away from Mr. Parker. Some of the people that actually broke away from Mr. Parker, like Larry Tatum broke away before he died. Someone like Paul Mills, Jeff Speakman, those people have like taken the art. Not only did they do what Mr. Parker wanted, whereas uh, whether they did it at the time that he wanted it or didn't, or they did it after, they have taken it and they made it their own, right? Jeff Speakman made Jeff Speakman's Kempo. So, all right, so he uses the Parker techniques as a base, but he tried to modernize them to fit like a UFC combat model, right? Uh, Paul Mills took it and he was developing like speed and understanding. So, like the way he taught a lot of his people, like he generated his own techniques and kind of found additional patterns. But from my understanding, he was like, we want to get to a point where like, I don't have to teach you techniques. I want you to focus on the concepts and principles, really understand where you're at so that it's just muscle memory, and you're able to act in the moment and not react. And I know Francisco for years has been working. He works incredibly hard, trying to innovate and change and alter and, take things apart and put things back together. So I think like, and, Mr. Tatum was like a big influence on Francisco for that, someone who also will teach the same, breakdown of a form. And I've seen it like multiple times. Say he like teaches, the first couple of moves of long three. And, each time he teaches it, there's something new and different that you don't see it necessarily at the previous seminar, so he is also still at this age, like still constantly like trying to evolve and change. And, I know there's others that I didn't mention. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that have kind of made the art their own and done their own thing. But I think it's very easy to take the curriculum, teach it exactly how you have it, and then that's it. You don't have to like, okay, here's your belt. Now you have the curriculum, and people walk away with like, can I use this? Like we kind of pressure test our stuff, kind of. Like if you get into a black belt technique line where guys are hitting each other, and you're really feeling some like heavy contact, like I can tell you, like maybe not it's kind of different in different parts of the world. It really is. Like in England, they all like to hit hard. The Dutch like to hit hard. Venezuelans, they like to hit hard. The South Americans, everybody, like a lot of guys, and they're fast and they're very serious about it. And West Coast and East Coast in America, different Kempo. Even the same instructor, same like grandmaster, whatever, Ed Parker. It's like if you're looking at Ed Parker's Kempo, um, the way some of the nuances in the techniques, like somebody uses a back fist, somebody uses a hand sword, somebody uses a palm heel, and it's like, okay, so you're learning different methods of or different tool use for a different path or for the same path of action, right? Um, anyway, so like there's not really a wrong answer necessarily. It's just finding the right answer for yourself and hoping that in the moment you can really really utilize it. And so that's kind of like the focus that I'm moving towards is developing techniques and drills and stuff to fully pressure test Kempo in the best way possible. Because I know it comes under tons of critique from other arts and other people, MMA, BJJ, like you get those guys in the comments and all the other keyboard warriors. The way I look at it is Kempo is very unconventional in a lot of ways, the way you hit, right? There's not too many arts that you see use a upward lifting forearm underneath somebody's chin, right? Now, you take a guy like Boss Rutan, who just did an interview with Jesse Einkemp or Enkamp,
Mhm.
right? And he's hitting the bag with his forearms. He's like bang, and he's talking about like punching straight and saying that he's giving you like giving tips of how he hits and how he learned to become more unconventional in MMA so that he could gain his own edge. And so he hits with the forearm. You rock somebody with a forearm. People aren't used to that. They're expecting you to take your fists and hit him in the head, hit him in the gut, kick him in, maybe kick him in the legs, maybe. But if you start buckling people, like there's the Aiki Jiu-Jitsu part of Kempo is really interesting to me. The buckling, the throwing, the takedowns, some of the judo, that stuff is really interesting to me because it does work. I've used it in sparring. I've taken people very quickly out with a front crossover. Like you, people put that weight on their kicking leg, they lift that up just a little bit, and if you're able to snag it, with a front crossover going or a rear crossover going in reverse, whatever, and you sweep it, say just a sweep, you can take somebody's foot right out from under them and they'll lay right out, you know, um, or spread them out just enough to get your advantage. So I think that there's a lot to look at, and I'm all for like I've been kind of playing with a few different arts on the side. Um, I went to a seminar with Mal Morney, who does Silat. Is some of the greatest. His Silat looks like Kempo to me. It doesn't look like other arts of
Yeah.
other Silat arts, and and jujitsu in its own right is also like an incredible teacher. You know, um, I think these are all tools. That if you learn to use them, like I don't think you can use. There's just I don't know what it is. There's things about Kempo that I don't think you can use in a sparring session that's not going to really hurt somebody. Like I know I said that like upper lifting forearm. If you catch somebody with that as they're like coming down, you know, that's it's not the be all end all, but like if you start hitting in a sparring session like we do in Kempo when it's less controlled, I don't know. I think it'd be really different, and you can't hit the way in order to make things work. I know this has been like a thing that's been said, and it gets discounted by other people because they're like, yeah, you're just saying that. But and honestly, in all honesty, in order for some of these things to work, you have to hurt the person to get the pain compliance. It just won't work any other way. You know, if you stomp on somebody's Achilles tendon, if you take them down in the back of the knee and you stomp on their Achilles tendon, that is going to work. That is absolutely 1,000% going to, it's going to, potentially break the person's ankle, hyperextend or tear their Achilles tendon. Like it does like really serious damage. You kick somebody to the knee. If you've seen any of my videos that I've done with Tyler Duda, some of the newer, like latest ones that I posted, I haven't posted in a while, but some of the ones that I had posted, I usually show something where like we're messing up in the beginning, where it's like, or I hit him and it hurts. I hurt him by accident, and he's like, ah. I'm like, oh shit, are you all right? Sorry, you know. And then cut to the actual video, and so because I'm trying to show like, yeah, I bounced with my brother in the early 2000s in a couple of bars in town. And I learned a lot. I didn't get into like, I wasn't one of those bouncers that we got into tons of fights. We didn't have to because we were able to move people out before we needed to. I think, but I got an understanding of like working in tight spaces with lots of people around and trying to be as efficient and economic with my motion as possible, and prevent things before they get, like if you want to get into a knockdown drag out fight, it's where you can do that wherever, but I think like really trying to prevent that stuff before it happens, trying to see it before it happens and nip it in the bud as quickly as possible is an art in unto itself, anyway.
Exactly. No, well said. Yeah, it there's a lot of components that it has to, just like kind of we said before, it has to be tailored and customized, and it's not a one size fits all,
No.
and there are things that it's not about, oh well, this technique works or doesn't work. It's like, well, how do you make it work?
Right.
Everything works if you make it work.
Yeah.
And it's about continually growing, continually evolving, breaking things down, and learning and growing from there, and not just kind of taking things at the book value, the standard value. So,
Right.
So yeah, that's important. So we've flying through our time here. We've got
sorry.
so many things to get to. No, that's I love having the conversations and hearing the different perspectives and things like that. Not just in the Kempo world, but in the martial arts world. We're kind of scattered and we don't always see eye to eye. So it's good to get everybody's different perspective and thoughts.
I agree.
And maybe we can come to a spot where we have a little more unity and we can learn and grow from each other. But so we are going to go into what I call our lightning round here. Got a few little wrap up questions for you, and then that will close out our time for today.
Sure.
So the first question being, do you have a favorite technique?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could. So yeah, you know what? I'll just say this is not. I'm not lightning enough. Obviously, I'm one of the first Kempo people that's not fast enough.
Only in name. It's lightning only in name because
I think my favorite technique is most likely delayed sword for its simple approach, and there's so many lessons in delayed sword that you can teach a seminar on it, like a couple of seminars,
Agreed.
So I think that, and I think there's a reason why it's the number one technique, the foundational technique that you learn. Yeah, it speaks to me. I mean, really, I want to say like, okay, concepts and principles and stuff like that. But as far as like straight up techniques, yeah. But I try to do the techniques that I'm not good at. I try to make the ones like I try to do like dominating circles. I hate that technique, but I work hard at trying to make that technique work, because if you can get it to work, it's a really incredible technique. And I know like sequence wise, you're never going to pull this X, Y, and Z off. And I also know that, there's so many like, it's so ironic to me to hear like boxers and other people say like, oh, you're going to hit a guy 10 times. And then you see somebody doing a boxing combination that they learned. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, duck, duck, boom, 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 boom. And that's like one set. And then they go back and do it again. I'm like, okay, yeah. Come play with us sometime.
Exactly. All right. Next question. Do you have a favorite form and or set?
Yeah, I do. I would say 6 is probably my favorite form. Uh, uh, as far as favorite sets, there's easy and there's like punishment. And I think the most punishing set, what do you think of the most punishing set is for you?
Let's see. Well, for me, just right. This is very specific to the timing, but for me right now, kicking set 2
Yeah.
is problematic. One, because I injured my knee. I'm pretty sure I tore my MCL,
Oh,
and so
I'm sorry, that sucks.
getting around getting around kicking is not been super fun for me right now.
Right.
Uh, but just in, I guess the other part of it is it's full of kicks nobody likes to do. I mean, I I will be I will challenge anybody to explain the benefits of a rear chicken kick uh, to me that makes sense. So
Well,
I'm sure there's going to be
I'll
some
I'll
internet
tell
people
you.
that are gonna hit me up, and that's
No,
fine.
no,
You
no.
know where to find me. But
Rear chicken kick use in snaking talon. So the first time I learned snaking talon, this is like two people learning two different versions of the techniques. First time
mhm.
I learned snaking talon, do the front kick and then you turn and you do a rear chicken kick. You go left, right. And so when I went to Francisco's class for the first time, we were going through techniques and they had learned it as 1, 2, kick, and then turn and rear right shuffle kick because it sets them up for their extension. And I did a rear chicken kick and hit somebody in the chest and the face, and they were like, "Whoa!" They weren't ready for it. So you can catch somebody by surprise with it. I think it's one of those kicks I used to love back in the day when I could kick way over my head and kick all day, every day. I was more like for a Kempoist, I was more of a Taekwondo stylist because I loved kicking so much. But
No, I'm in the similar boat. So
yeah,
my original instructor, not to go off on too many tangents, but this is
right.
what I
Sorry.
do. My original instructor, he was connected with kind of in his early teaching days. He was teaching at a Taekwondo school, and so he got in good with the Taekwondo instructors. And so for kicking for a Kempo school, we were uh, very very good kickers.
Mm,
So and I've
yeah.
always been a fan of kicking. So yeah, as far as Kempoists go, I'm a much better kicker than the typical
Kempoist.
typical Kempoist.
And
Not
even
to
as a
toot my own
kicker,
horn or anything.
kicking set 2 is incredibly challenging.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
You can
It's
get a
brutal.
workout.
Yeah.
It'll work out when you go through that. So did we get to your favorite set, or do you have
Uh,
one?
yeah. No, I think my favorite set would be it's the hardest set is kicking set 2. So I think it's my favorite. I do it the absolute worst. I'm terrible at it. And that's one of the
You
reasons
haven't
why
seen
I like
mine,
it.
so
Coordination. I just recently taught coordination set 2, and it's like I told my student, I was like, this is the most karate thing we do. Coordination set 1. Sorry, coordination set 1, because it's block punch, kick punch, boom, 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 and it's like it feels very linear. You know.
Mhm,
Anyway,
mhm.
so yeah,
Gotcha. Very nice. All
yeah,
right. Next question. Do you have a favorite weapon?
yeah. I do. Uh, I'll be a jerk and say my mind, but really,
Hey, that's a great answer.
no,
That's you can't do anything else
you got to be
without it. So
able to innovate. But I'm obsessed with like I design a lot of like training knives and knives on the side. So edged weapons I'm fascinated with. They're a just an awful thing to encounter. I would not from a little box cutter to something more scary. It's just terrifying, and the damage it does is like really devastating. So, as far as a force multiplier, for me would be a knife all the way. Favorite tool.
very nice. Very nice. Like it. All right. Last question. If there's anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, besides Ed Parker, who would that be?
besides Ed Parker.
Yeah,
Anybody
this is a
alive or
Kempo
dead?
show, so we have to take Ed Parker off the table.
Yeah, that's only fair. That's only fair. That'd be the easy one, right?
Exactly.
Man, that's a tough question because there's so many like really great martial artists out there, you know, that so many people I haven't trained with yet, whether in Kempo or not in Kempo. I think, you know what? I'm going to say this one because this person has remained a mystery for the type of Kempo that they developed under Ed Parker would probably be Paul Mills. And because there is a way that he was able to generate speed and power that I think actually, nobody will probably admit this because of the fealty that all Kempoists pay to, Ed Parker and, the main guy, right? The thing is, the most important thing I think an instructor wants when they are instructing, when, as a teacher, I don't want people, I don't want to be the best one. I want the people I'm training to be the best, right? So I think like he found, or however they found each other, Paul Mills learned what Ed was teaching, and he took his like gunfighter, like, competition stuff and understood like timing and speed and took it to another level. And I don't think Mr. Parker was, I mean, Mr. Parker was fast, but I don't think he was, it's in the tapes. Like, I don't see it as the same, but similar, slightly different styles. The way Paul Mills moved and the way Mr. Parker moved are different, definitely different, similar, but different. But I feel like Mr. Parker would agree with me that,
Yeah, no,
some of his
that's
students, he wanted them to be better than him. He didn't want to be the best.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's the thing. I think with uh, any teacher wants their, or I think that any teacher should want their students to be better than them. Any teacher that thinks that they have to be the best one, I think has got some problems and needs to get some readjustments.
Yeah.
Out in the parking lot or whatever.
Attitude
But
adjustment. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, it's what I don't know what would be the point of teaching anybody if you're going to be the best one at it.
If you're trying to like assemble a cadre of yes men that are all, I don't know, if you're trying to create the Foot Clan or something like that, you want a bunch of ninjas that'll do what you want, you know. I don't know.
I just I just love how the universe works out and how things work out, and in that you said that and you used that example because just about an hour ago I interviewed a man by the name of Ken Scott who played Raphael in the
Oh, cool.
original Ninja Turtle movies. So it's just
Raphael,
like
who's like the best Ninja Turtle.
Kismet, yeah.
You know.
So it's total kismet that you would say that on today, and
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we
went
had
as
a
far
nice
as
conversation.
I got some steel from like a local hardware store, and I made my own size. I didn't know how to weld
Oh,
or anything, so I just like taped them together. So I bent the little hooks, and I was like, I was obsessed with size. But
oh,
yeah,
very nice, very nice.
yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't say that as pick that as your weapon then.
I grew out of it. I grew out of it.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so we are at our final piece of business for today, and that
Right
is
on.
the shameless self promotion. So you can plug anything that you want, or if there's anything that we hadn't covered that you wanted to make sure to get out, you now have the floor, and then we'll close out from there.
Sure. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Apex Kempo. Uh, I've been working on my website. I haven't put my website up yet, but I'm hoping to do that and do a Patreon thing so I can teach online and stuff like that. So for right now, best way to contact me if you want is through either Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. TikTok, I post all my videos on. So, you know.
Very nice, very nice.
Right
So
on.
yeah, make sure to send me your links and stuff, and I'll get them put in the show notes.
Absolutely, will do.
I'll at least try to. I'm really bad at show notes and stuff, but
I don't even
I'm working on it.
I hope people read the show notes. I don't know. I don't know how exciting it is, but
I get, because we kind of talked before we started. I get
Right.
so anxious to kind of get these episodes out and stuff like that. It's like, oh, let me just post it and then I'll put the people's name. And I've got kind of called out a few times for not having any show notes. Like, don't just put the person's name. Like, put a description about the show. Like, well, listen to the show. But that's I got to you got to kind of put something out for everybody. So
absolutely.
I'm
well, I'll get you
trying
those
to get
links
better.
to make the show notes easier.
Right. Yeah. And of course I can put them in at any time. So, if it's a year down the road and I finally put in the links, then, everybody, you're welcome. So, well, yeah, no, I thank you so much for taking
thank
the time
you.
to be on and sharing your story. And
Absolutely.
you definitely have an open invitation to be back on, and we'll get into more things.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I thank you so much for being on. And I think,
thanks for having
the listeners will enjoy this, and yeah, we will, talk again soon. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, Reggie.